Take one.
Take one.
Action. Wait, is it this way or this way?
That way. What's going on, Spring, Texas? Welcome to episode 83, season 5 of Talking Throws podcast, Texas style. I'm Coach Jason.
And I'm Coach Janelle.
And we are Throws Coach with the track club, the Thorn Factory. You can check out our bios at thethornfactory.com. Guys, we're getting ready for our indoor season. So if you're needing some weight lessons or shot put lessons for glide or rotational, be sure to reach out to myself or Coach Janelle, especially if you're a youth, basically 13 and younger, but also Coach Kai Smith, Coach Jarvis, and then Coach Knight, that's also out running Knight Power and Performance out in Abilene, Texas. So if you're in any of those areas, has any questions about what we're doing, go to the website, thethornfactory.com. And also remind everybody, too, about our apparel. We got new stuff on the site as well, so please go shopping on there and look cool at your next track meet. And then also, too, I've been told that my face looks good on YouTube, so give us a thumbs up or thumbs down on our YouTube channel. And we're getting a lot of views and get a lot of attraction on that. So, go continue to go support that, please. Our sponsors for Season 5, Texas Track and Field Coaches Association. That website is ttfca.org. Of course, that's led by our main guy, Stuart Cantor. The itinerary is actually up for the January 6th, January 7th Winter Clinic. What's really cool from the throwing side is on January the 7th, Adam Setliff will be talking from 11 a.m. to 11:45. Steven Sines will be talking shot put from 2 o'clock to 2:45. But then also Boo Snake Snyder, the strength conditioning coach from LSU, will be talking on that Saturday from 12 to 12:45. So we're going to be there doing some live interviews and stuff. So come by and say hellos to us. But on Friday, I'm looking forward to Lindsay Hazard, sports nutrition. Mike McCarroll's going to be talking pole vault, so there's going to be a lot of activity. And then that night at 7 p.m. is the Hall of Fame introduction, so be sure to stay around for that as well. Also, 4throws.com, quality implements price right. Use that promo code TalkingThrows10 to get 10% off. Guys, if you're looking for a javelin, if you're looking for a hammer, if you're looking for practice disc, if you're looking for a new net, if you're looking for portable cage, go to 4throws.com and use that code TalkingThrows10 to get 10% off. Porta-Circle, making throwing more accessible. Go to porta-circle.com, use the code TalkingThrows10 to get 10% off.
He's trying to be Vanna and Pat Sajak at the same time.
Yeah, you can cut that out. This is actually what it looks like. And this is a 1/4 inch styrofoam, so this is actually the thickness of it. So it's pretty sturdy. So if you do put it on a driveway or in a gym, on a basketball court, it's going to stay together. So it's not that flimsy. It's just going to kind of blow away or tear away. So that's what it looks like. Use the code TalkingThrows10 to get that 10% off. Again, that website is porta-circle.com. Ready Up Athletic Development. Ran by Zach Phillips. His cell phone is 512-507-8347. His website is readyupad.com. He's actually writing programs for high school athletes right now, for multi-sport athletes. So if you're a volleyball player looking to be a thrower in the spring, if you're a swimmer, maybe going into golf, if you're a volleyball player going into basketball, if you're a football player going into baseball, he's got a program for you. That site where you can go get that program is Training Heroic. The program is called Basic Throw Strength. If you use the promo code THROWS10, you'll get 20% off. If you use the code THROWS10, you'll get 20% off. And that's anywhere from Olympic lifting to isometric movements to anything you need to take your competitive level to the next. Sports Discus. Looking at a 2K,
yep,
low spin twister 2. Then also you get a really cool carrying case. It's got it on the back. So you can look cool walking up to that discus ring and kick everybody's tail with the new Fiber Sports Discus. That website is fibersportsdiscus.com. Also, you can purchase Fiber Sports Discus at Four Throws. Use our code Talking Throws 10. If you go to our site, thethrowingfactory.com, at the bottom of the homepage, you'll find a link for fourthrows.com, but also for Fiber Sports as well. Our guest today on episode 83 currently is helping with the throwers at the University of Houston while she's in grad school. As a post-collegiate, she was a 4-time Olympian, had a lifetime PR of 73.47, throwing for a home country of Argentina. She attended University of Georgia. She was an 8-time All-American with a PR in the hammer of 70.72. She had a shot put outdoor PR of 14.50 and also in the weight. She threw a 24.04. She's a graduate, 2003 graduate of Klein High School. In that same year, in 2003, she was a state champion in the shot put in the discus in Class 5A. She had a PR in high school in the shot put of 49.4. Pretty cool, interesting fact, in 2002, she was the Pan American U20 champion in the hammer. And then also in that same year, she hit a high school mark of 195 feet 2 inches, which is, here's the trivia part of that, which is the 14th all-time best mark on the mark list. That's also the 9th best mark by a female in high school, that 95.2. Please welcome to episode 83, Jenny Dahlgren. So are you full-time now? Are kind of what's going on currently?
So it's going to be announced hopefully this week. But officially, like, I'm the new throws coach. So full-time. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. So, I had reached out to Blackburn last year. I had just retired. I had just moved to Houston. I didn't really know him from before, but I just reached out and I was like, hey, I'm me. I'm in Houston. If you need any help, maybe with the hammer throwers, let me know. Like, I had a lot of time on my hands last year because I was still trying to figure out what I wanted to do after retirement. And then in January, I started grad school at U of H. I started massage school. So this year I became a massage therapist. I'm still doing grad school. And then this summer, Blackburn reached out to me and he was like, hey, are you still interested in volunteering? And I was like, sure, but I already had like more things on my plate. And I probably like volunteer coached for 2 weeks in like end of August, beginning in September. And then really early on, I realized that like there was a lot going on and these kids needed somebody like that was going to be their full time and attention. And Blackburn is shifting over to the jumps, and he's also director of track and field now. Yeah. So he has a lot of like bureaucracy on his plate. I got thrown into the fire, and I'm the new throws coach at U of H. So
wow, well, we got the exclusive. We're excited. So we're excited. I'm excited to have you. You were someone that's right in my wheelhouse for passion. So with hammer. So I'm excited to hear your story about that.
Well, all right. First question: where did your interest from throwing start, and when did you first start throwing?
So I have done sports all my life. My mom was also an Olympian. She was in the 72 Olympics running the 100 meters for Argentina when she was only like 16 years old. And then my dad was never an Olympian, but he was always super active, super athletic, playing a lot of soccer. So from a very young age, like my brother and my sister and I, we always did sports. And we were pretty free to like choose whatever sport we were most interested in. And I like played them all. I did a lot of soccer. I played in a select team. I played for like 8 years. I also played, I was a goalie.
I knew that.
And then, I played softball. I played basketball in middle school. I did a little track in middle school. Like I think I threw the shot. And my family's originally from Argentina, and we moved back and forth my whole life. That's why I don't have an accent in my English. But when we moved back to Argentina, I was 14, and then we didn't find the same like rec sports availability down there. It's pretty much you can play like women's field hockey is kind of the only sport, and it's a club basis. So you have to be a member of a club. So it's not as accessible as a lot of sports here in the US. So my sister and I were kind of stopped for a while until one of our PE teachers in our school saw us like, running track and doing the different things in our private school down there. And she's like, "Hey, you guys should go to the training center." And I know this guy named Andres Charadilla, who was a hammer thrower. And he started coaching my sister first, and she did a little hammer. And then I showed up like 2 months later, I think, and I just loved it. I loved it. I mean, I'd thrown shot and disc, and I continued to do so even through college at Georgia, just for trying to steal some conference points.
Yeah.
But the hammer, like from the time I picked it up, it just fascinated me. It was just so different, and I got pretty good at it pretty fast. So that also, was helpful because I started traveling and going to all these competitions and meeting new people. And I look at it now too, like my love for the hammer started at a really complicated time in my life when I was like 14, which was also when I was like being bullied really bad in school. So
wow.
even though I didn't realize it at the time, track was everything that school was not for me. Like it was a place of acceptance where my body, which was what I was mainly bullied about, was a positive, you know. So I really found this space of acceptance, along with just this genuine passion of something I love to do. So quickly it connected, and I had done all these sports like I mentioned before, but only when I found the hammer throw did I ever like have that click of like, oh, I could go to the Olympics.
Oh, wow.
At the age of 14.
At the age of
connected for you.
14. Yeah. And the
Wow.
crazy thing is I remember having that thought of like, oh, that'd be so cool to one day go to the Olympics. I was like, wouldn't it be awesome to go to 5? When I was 14, it's like my first thought when I started throwing the
You were
hammer.
motivated.
I was pretty crazy. And then, I did make it to 4.
Yeah.
And then Tokyo and COVID just finished sucking the fun out of it for me. So I called it quits in 2021, but I did the thing for 23 years and I loved it. So
Wow. So getting back to that first date, so did he just kind of give you a stick and just kind of work heel toe turns, or kind of what was that first day like compared to maybe what you were doing in shot and disc? Because, with some of our younger athletes, they kind of blended discus footwork and they, try to turn like coming out of the back like hammer. What was your first day like?
honestly, I don't remember my first day too, because it was a long time ago. Okay.
Yeah.
But it was definitely probably some winds and some wind and releases along
Okay.
with some stick drills just to start learning that footwork. And which is exactly how I'm teaching some of my kids hammer now. The kids that don't have any hammer, just foot drills and showing them the footwork. It's complex, but once you understand the system, it's a lot easier. But it's really, really cool being able to like teach somebody that's never thrown it. So I don't inherit any, either bad traits or like different. I can like mold them to what I want the throw to be and to look like. And once they start understanding these big concepts, it's really cool. So like coaching definitely feels something that is full circle to me, and like super satisfying. So
Wow.
So you said your sister threw. Is she older or younger?
my sister Sabrina is 3 years older than I am,
Okay.
and she also did like triple jump. But then she started doing a bunch of AP credits, like her last 2 years of high school in Argentina, and she's a bookworm.
Okay.
So for her, like time wise, she ended up kind of drifting away from track and focusing on her studies. Whereas I was like, I'll study for a B and then I'll go practice. Like,
That's awesome. I'd ask too, you said at 14 you thought about being an Olympian. Was your mom a big influence in that? Did she share with y'all her experience of being an Olympian? Because some 14-year-olds, that wouldn't even cross their mind.
well, and that's the thing too, is like I always knew my parents were supportive of us being in sports, but also I think as a teenager, you're very like selfish or self-absorbed in your world of teenage, hormones and drama and all of that. And it wasn't really until I qualified for Athens when I was either 19 or 20. So I was still really young, but that's when I really clicked. And I was like, oh, Mom, what was your Olympic experience? Because I had always known it in the back of my mind that she'd been to the Olympics, but I had never really connected on, like what her experiences were and all of that. So me being a second generation Olympian was a really cool like connecting moment for my mom and I.
Oh wow.
That's
Wow.
awesome.
So that transition from being that 14-year-old to basically traveling and throwing in the world junior championships and some of the stuff that you did with the Pan American Games and stuff like that. I'm curious, how did the federation, the Argentina Track and Field Federation, kind of handle that situation? Because in the States we kind of have certain protocols that we had to qualify for and all that. I'm just kind of curious, kind of what were your steps to kind of get to those meets?
So especially when I was a youth and a junior athlete, so under 17 and under 19, I think you call them U18 and U20 actually. But when I was a youth athlete, we would have international standards. So if we threw this much, we would qualify for meets. But for a lot of the meets, there was like underfunding, so we didn't have a lot. So my parents actually did have to like chip in and help get me to certain meets. But I would say after I was 20, I qualified for my first Olympics, and then I finally started getting the funding and being able to travel. And then when I even got a little bit better, like my coach was with me and we were able to plan like different training in Europe. So that's kind of a thing it's still hard, especially in Argentina, Latin America, is youth funding. It's getting better. It's getting better, but it's still quite far off from the ideal. But I feel like that's also true in a lot of places, because how many countries really invest in a developmental athlete? Everybody wants like the sure thing, or they want something that, when the result has already arrived, and they're not willing to invest in like all the project kids. So you have to really prove yourself to get any type of support and funding. So
Did your initial coach that you first have, did he kept being your coach through those world championships, or did you get switched to like the senior coach, like how maybe like they do in Germany or something like that?
So in my whole 23-year career, I've only ever had 3 coaches. Andres Charadilla from Argentina, who was I think a 3-time Olympian in the hammer throw. And then I moved to Houston to finish high school, and so technically 4th, because Simon Williams was a thrower from Great Britain. He's more of a discus guy, but he actually helped me a little bit just in the last 2 years of high school, where it was hard for me to really train anywhere because hammer throw is not taught in high school. So he helped me a little bit, but I wouldn't consider him like coach. And then University of Georgia, I had Don Babbitt.
Who's
and then
that?
once I graduated, I moved back down to Argentina, and I was not sure who I was going to train with down there. And then I chose to train with Marcelo Pugliese, who had gone to 3 Olympics in the discus throw. But Marcelo ended up being my coach for like the better half of my career. Super knowledgeable guy. He was also my strength coach. He's one of my best friends. I'm like godmother to his kid. So definitely really close relationship with him. And so I'd say I've had 3 coaches.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
So you have all this success as a youth, and then one day your parents walk in and say, "Hey, we're moving back to Texas."
And we'd moved around like my whole life, but when I was 17, and they said, "Hey, we're moving back to Houston," like you could not mention the US to me without me bawling.
Really?
Because we had moved around so much when I was little, like we had never had that, family around us. So when we moved back to Argentina, we had, family barbecues and Christmas with all my relatives down there, my 2 grandmas. So leaving that and leaving all of the community that I had found in the track down there, that sense of like belonging. And also there was this cultural connection, because when I was younger and I was doing, I don't know, like middle school in the US, and somebody would ask me where I was from, I would say like, "Oh, I'm from Argentina," but I wouldn't feel like I was Argentinian because we left originally when I was 2. So when I went back when I was 14, I really like connected culturally to a lot of things. I had to kind of relearn the language. And then like, I don't know, I just felt really, really like that was my spot in the world. So to come back when I was 17 was super tough. But yeah, I couldn't really stay with my grandma down at that time. So I finished high school in Houston. I went to University of Georgia. And the day after I graduated Georgia, I felt like it was really my first chance in my life to get to pick where I wanted to go. And I moved back down to Argentina. And I've been there for the last 13 years. So.
Oh, wow. Wow. So we have to backtrack a little bit because we got to talk about your high school career, those couple of years at Klein High School, right?
Yes, Klein High School.
Okay. So you went to state twice. You were state champion your senior year, shot and disc through 49.4, I believe, your senior year.
If you say so, I will believe you.
You should remember shot put throws.
Well, my
Well, and
first question
also,
is
I'm a meter girl, so
Oh, that's
yeah,
I'm like,
okay.
yeah.
Well, my first obvious question is how was the transition from what you were doing maybe on a national level in Argentina to coming into Texas, and now you're thrown in this UIL sport and having to go to these meets, and you can't do hammer, and you're getting 3 throws, and then you're going to go home.
Yeah, it was definitely a tough transition, like because one, I wasn't being able to throw the hammer except on, maybe one weekend a month that Simon Williams would like meet up with me and kind of help me out. So it was kind of this shift back to shot and disc and that. So I felt like there were 2 years that other girls were training more than I was in the hammer specifically. So I felt like I was kind of losing ground in that sense. But I
Yeah.
mean, I still loved shot and disc. And
Were
high
you a
school was
glider or
definitely tough.
rotational shot putter?
Actually, I threw the same gliding and rotationally in college, but in high school I was a glider.
You were a glider. Okay.
Yeah. And not to like throw shade at all, but my high school throws coach was like the shop teacher.
Yeah.
So he did the best he could, but he also like going from being trained by like a 3-time Olympian in Argentina, that was somebody that was very throw specific, switching back to this high school context where, I mean, I did the best I could, he did the best he could, and senior year I won the state in both events. So it worked out, but it was kind of a tough 2 years for me, just because I felt like I wasn't developing as fast as I wanted to.
Yeah. So during that time, were your thoughts like already thinking about throwing in the States for college and stuff, kind of relating back to what your international experience was maybe 3 years earlier?
Yeah, and I think too that the move, I think things happen when they're supposed to happen, and I think that they happen for a reason. Even though at that time it was really rough for me, moving back to the U.S. made going to NCAA's was uh, like a logical next step. All I wanted to do was throw. And I think my dad knew that, and he was like, "Listen, you can throw professionally eventually, but I want you to have like an education and kind of a backup plan just in case." So that's when the Division I athletics and a scholarship to a university came hand in hand, because I could do both. And NCAA is awesome. During the season, you have every single weekend, you have really good competitions. You have everything worked out so where you can like study and travel and compete, and you don't have to think about too much, just taking care of business. So it worked out. It worked out really well.
Wow. Was there a couple other, and I know you wound up going to Georgia. Was there a couple of other schools that you were kind of looking at during that recruiting process coming out that senior year?
Well, ironically, I graduated the same year as Michelle Carter, and I was a
Yes.
5A and she was a 4A. So
Yes.
all the Texas schools were recruiting Michelle, and like I did not get recruited barely out of Texas.
Really?
Yeah, it was strange, but I was like, okay. But then at the same time, I was getting like calls from Harvard and Stanford.
Okay. More outside the state.
Yeah, Oregon, obviously Georgia, Kansas State, Missouri. I went to visit to LSU. So
Okay.
there were several programs that I was looking into. It was hard too to understand like who's a good throws coach, because I was coming from Argentina, so I didn't really know who had a strong name. And I remember Dan Paff actually through this friend Simon Williams. He had like kind of tried to guide me a little bit and give me a little bit of background of who was who, and his personal opinions about what might be a good fit for me. And then I just went to 4 different visits, but Georgia was just the place for me. Like I had an awesome recruiting visit. The weekend that I went to Georgia, they had a throws clinic, so all the big names were in Georgia that weekend. And at the time, like Adam Nelson, Reese Hoffa,
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
they were all like training at Georgia as post collegiate. So it was an amazing environment to be a part of. So it was a really easy choice. And honestly, I felt like it was I never looked back.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, that's
Wow.
awesome.
Do you remember your first impression of Coach Babbitt? Because, you know, he's a big name. Everybody knows his name, but we don't know much about him in the state of Texas. Kind of what was your first impression of him? You know, maybe that was on the phone or maybe face to face.
Yeah. Actually, Coach Blackburn and Coach Babbitt kind of remind me of each other now that I know Coach Blackburn a little bit more.
Oh,
Um, Coach Babbitt is, you know, like he seems to be a kind of a quieter dude, but he's pretty silly. He's definitely committed to the throws. He knows his stuff. So I mean, I was really happy with my decision, and I never regretted it. So.
Oh, wow. Wow. All right. So one thing that's very important to me, you threw 195.2 as a high school.
What is that in meters?
I don't know what that is in meters. It's over 60 meters. As senior year in high school, was that a United States track and field meet? Because I'm sure you're aware of this. You might not be. Are you aware how that still ranks?
No.
Okay. So I'm gonna
He
get
is.
so that throw of 195.2 still ranks 14th all time. That throw
Okay.
of 195.2 threw by you is still the 9th best female throw in the history of hammer in the U.S.
Well, no, I had no idea, honestly.
There you go.
Yeah, and the reason why is like I am really pushing hammer with our club and our youth and really trying to get hammer out into the hands of our female throwers and male throwers in the state of Texas. And your one person has came through the ranks of a high school in the state of Texas that has had success in hammer. Yes, it was a little different, but you still had success. You know, do you remember that meet? Do you remember that throw?
Honestly, I feel like what meet was that? Do you remember it?
No, I couldn't find the listing. It's on the track and field news all-time list. So it's the
It says U20s.
no. That was
it.
when she was a Pan American
Oh,
champion.
got it.
Did you throw that at the Pan American Championship, the U20s, the 195.2?
I might have. I'm honestly like you guys. It was a while ago. Like, and I'm honestly like the worst about like how far I threw, when and where. But that's also something I always say. Like when people say like, oh, like how far did you throw here or there? I'm like, I can't really remember like which medal, what record I broke where, but I can tell you like who I met and the laughs and like the memories that we shared. So like I'm definitely more of an emotional a person in that way. So I'm like more about the memories and stuff. But I feel like when I was 18 or 19, I was like gonna, just eat up the world. Because I was improving leaps and bounds as you tend to do when you're, a teenager, because you're still developing your strength, and technically you're learning new things all the time. So once you get like one new little thing within the technique, and then you're already connecting the dots and throwing farther and farther. So I was like, I'm gonna improve every year of my career, and I'm gonna be awesome. And it was like that for several years. And then I kind of reached the high point, and then I was like, oh, from here on, it's a little bit more difficult to improve. But definitely out of high school, I really did feel like I had this world of opportunity and possibilities in front of me. So
awesome. So you go to Georgia, you're 8-time All-American, you win NCAA outdoor championship in the hammer in 06 and 07. You also threw outdoor shot put 1450.
There you go.
Yeah. He's the numbers person.
I'm the numbers.
I can connect with your emotional. Side.
There you go.
All the numbers. I want to go, who'd you talk to and how'd you feel? And that's
exactly.
That's the important stuff.
I know. I have issues. Is there some one of the highlights, is there anything that kind of stood out to you during your 4 years at Georgia that kind of you're most proud of? Maybe it was a championship or coming over, because I think you were even injured a little bit.
I was a little bit injured my senior year with a foot thing.
Okay.
So, and I like pushed through, and then I had surgery at the end of my senior year on my foot. What would I most be proud of? I just think that like the consistency. that I had
Yes.
through college, and I feel like that's the same consistency that I had when I was a professional athlete. Um, I would show up every day, put in work, be on time, give my best effort. And to say, like, yeah, I won NCAA's 3 times, but I feel like it's almost more impressive if you look at my 8 All-American titles, because as a freshman year, I was third indoors, third outdoors. And then
Yes.
from there, I did not place worse than third at NCAA indoor or outdoor in my 4 years. And I'm like, and I feel like that is just, it speaks to my consistency and my professionalism, even as a collegiate athlete. And that's what marked the difference in my professional career, was just my like work ethic. So I think that's maybe the coolest part.
Did your family stay in Houston while you were at Georgia, or did they go back to Argentina?
They've been here now since 2000. So yeah, they
Okay.
stayed here, and then I from Georgia went back to Argentina. And then last year after I retired, I was like, I'll go visit them and kind of plan my next move. And then I was like, well, it's really nice to be around family. So, and now here I am living in Houston again, which I never thought I would, but
Yeah. How was a transition from Coach Babbitt's and his technique, maybe if something that's changed versus your previous international coach that you had at Argentina? Because Hammer's there's some cues, but there's rhythm and stuff, like you said earlier, connecting the dot. Maybe Coach Babbitt's way of connecting dot was a little bit different. Was that a transition for you?
it was a little bit more. I think it's also time. So from I would say like my first coach, it was just kind of learning the basic things. And I feel like with Babbitt, it was a lot more of, so I have this base technique, and then it was kind of connecting the dots. And we were very like, I was a very rhythmic thrower. So all through college, I was a 3-turner. And every day I would warm up 1 turn, 2 turn, 3 turn. And even in competitions, I would 1 turn, 2 turn, 3 turn. So it was all very rhythmic within my throw and kind of having that
Really?
feel. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Did y'all do a lot of drills? Was there a lot of stuff on the sides and stuff that y'all really did? Like, we do a lot of two winds and a turn, just that repetition with my young kids. Did y'all
hmm
do drills like that?
I feel like we didn't. I feel like in college it was more like get some good quality throws in, because we already had that basis
Yeah.
from, I already had the technical basis. But like my kids today that are still learning the event, I'll have them do drills even if they're in college, because they need to understand some basic movements. Um, so like I brought out the PVC pipe on the first day, and I was like, you guys, this is not a punishment. If I ever send you to do a drill with this, because I would feel like that, right? When I
Yeah.
was like demoted, like stop throwing, go do drills. I felt like I was being demoted technically. So I really wanted my kids to understand, like, hey, this is our tool. Like, it's going to help us improve and feel these positions and understand the technique better. So I'll still have them do drills, but I didn't as much in college. I just remember throwing, and learning the weight was not a fun experience. No hammer thrower loves the weight.
Thank you. So was that a big transition for you? Because that was one of the questions I was going to ask. Thanks for bringing that up.
The weight, the bad thing about the weight is that it's heavy, so it kind of beats up your body. But the good thing is that it's so short and heavy, so it's like specific strength. So if you really get the timing and you work on that weight all through the indoor season, once you pick up the 4K hammer, it's a yo-yo. So as long as you're strong technically, it is a really good tool to transition into the outdoor season.
Yeah. Now you said you switched to rotational shot put a little bit at Georgia, right?
We tried it a little bit.
Do you feel that weight in that hammer helped you a little bit pick up rotational a little quicker?
No, I think it was just because I knew I had thrown discus before. So, and honestly, I remember I was at practice and we were like throwing glide, and then just fooling around like you do, I guess, in college. And I picked it up and I did a rotational. And Babbitt looked at me, he's like, "That's not bad. Let's try that." So then we switched to rotational for a bit, and I threw the exact same distance, which I think was like 1554 glide and rotational. So.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
There you go. Was y'all's? Go ahead. You had a question.
Well, before you jump into her post-collegiate career, but go ahead.
No, you asked first.
But he always jumps
We
ahead.
fight.
No, I always ask.
We are better than
questions.
NBC.
No. So before we move on to whatever post collegiate stuff, college athletes, you talked about you were consistent when you were a college athlete. So, like, before, you're going to probably give great advice to your current athletes. But what advice would you give to that college thrower that's going to help them be consistent like you were? You said your work ethic and stuff. Is there any great advice you would give a
Or even
college
high
thrower?
school?
Yeah, or even high school.
Yeah, I feel like the best advice that I give is that there are no shortcuts. You can't, like if you have big goals, the bigger your goal, like the bigger your commitment has to be towards that goal. And if the hammer weighs 4 kilos every day and it measures the same length every day, why is it not flying as far some days? Well, I changed. My technique changed, my attitude changed. So it's a very true way to measure yourself all the time because it's, a question of meters and centimeters. So you can't really like lie to yourself about why you're throwing further. Yes, it can be a technical thing, but can also be, you're physically tired, you have something going on mentally. And you really just have to put in the work and really, really be patient for those big goals, because I feel like a lot of times, and I don't want to make this like a generational thing, but I've seen so many kids just get frustrated because they want everything now. And I think that in general, we're experiencing this culture of immediacy, like I want something, I'm going to buy it on Amazon, I'll have it tomorrow. I want to like learn something, I'm going to Google it right now. So like having everything being immediate gives us kind of this expectation, but not in sport. In sport, it's a long progression. It's a long-term goal. I remember when I was 14 and I dreamed about being in the Olympics sometime. I was 14 and I was like, well, maybe like, so I knew I wasn't going to make Sydney because I had just started. I was like, Athens seems really soon. I was like, maybe 2008. So I was already projecting way into the future about this goal. And I was willing to commit those like 8 years to try to make it to Beijing. And then I had improved leaps and bounds. And I was already there when I was 20 years old for Athens 2004. So really you just have to put in the work, be true to yourself, and there's no shortcuts.
Oh,
That's
wow.
good. I love that.
Wow.
Yeah. Big goals. I'm writing that down.
Big and no shortcuts.
Yeah.
So
No,
four-time
the goal, the
Olympian,
bigger the-
you've thrown for over 20 years. We can't talk about every meet, but just kind of walk us through the process going from that collegiate athlete to now you're a professional thrower representing your country. Kind of the training expectations. Now you switched and you went back to your home country. Kind of what was that transition like? And now you've kind of got your home country on your chest again, just like you did as a youth.
Yeah, so it was a bit of a strange transition also because after 2007, I had that foot surgery. So when I went back home to Argentina in 2008, I mean, I had already thrown, I think 72.94, I think was my NCAA record when I left college. And when I went back to Argentina, I was like throwing 67, 68, just coming back from that foot surgery. So, and to give my coach, my third coach, credit, he didn't inherit me at my best. He inherited me at like kind of a low.
Welcome back, track people. This is Brandon, owner of fourthrows.com. We're a fast and growing track and field company that specializes in the throws. With our speed shipping, implement warranties, and rock bottom prices on javelins, discuses, shot puts, and hammers, call us up today to talk directly to one of the owners at fourthrows.com.
So physically, like after college, being a post-collegiate athlete, I mean, I thought I had, trained hard. Like it did not compare. There were days I was training, 2 sessions a day, 4 days a week, and then 1 session, 1 day a week. And between sessions, I was like taking 4-hour naps, just like dragging myself to practice, but putting in the work and having faith in what we were trying to do. And then the first year with my new coach, I ended up throwing 72 again, and I had a super consistent year. So the transition was different. It was a lot of volume, a lot of throws. Physically, I was getting super, super strong. So it was quite an adaptation. I feel like the three times I changed coach was also like a life stage because it was high school, so kind of a youth, junior thrower, and then I had Babbitt as my collegiate thrower, and then professionally I had my third coach. So they were big life stage changes also. But being a professional athlete in Argentina, it became like super satisfying too, because if you ask me like what's the biggest accomplishment of my career, I'm not going to talk to you about a specific, you know, number I threw, a record I broke, a medal I won. To me, the most important and significant thing I did in my career was, thanks to like the longevity of my career and everything that I was able to accomplish, today more people in Argentina know what the hammer throw is. So to be, you know, to like elevate something that I love so much so that it gets more attention and it inspires younger kids, is I think that's the coolest thing I could hope for in a career. So
Yeah. I have to ask, did y'all have a regulation cage and all that stuff at your
yeah, we had a
practice?
cage, and
Okay.
well, I trained at the National Training Center, so we had a
Okay.
full track. But like I joke with my kids at U of H all the time, because our weight room, like, it didn't have AC, it didn't have heating, so you know, like we had Olympic bars and we had plates and we had everything we needed, like very basic level. We had
Yeah.
everything we needed. So it was a lot of, you know, improvising and making do with what we had and just putting in that hard work. So I was like, you don't need a $20 million gym or a brand new facility to throw. You need a circle, hopefully a cage for some security, some safety, and some implements. But like, it's just more of the attitude, you know, to put forward than having new shiny things.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm sure, you know, 2016, when you threw in Brazil in the Olympics in Rio de Janeiro, that had to be kind of meaningful. South America, you know, close to family and friends. That had
it was
almost like being home.
Yeah, it was almost like being home, but at the same time, it was a little bit sad to me in that Brazil, Argentina, Latin American countries in general, they all have very football, like very soccer fans.
That's all right.
They were so good for a while. They're pretty dogs.
Thank you. It's because our friend's coming over to watch the. Okay, I'm back.
Oh, hey.
Hi, this was mine actually. Okay. What were we talking about?
Brazil, the Olympics.
Brazil. So the fans in Brazil are very soccer based fans, and there were a lot of people from Argentina and a lot of people from Latin America that they were like, this is our one chance to go to the Olympics, kind of economically, to be able to afford it. But a lot of those fans were football fans. So I remember the pole vault final in the stadium, and it was a Brazilian versus the French guy, Renaud Lavillenie.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like booing Renaud, and he was like, he could not understand what was happening. And to me, it was sad because I was like, this is not track and field. In track and field, you kind of like, you know, golf clap your opponent. Yeah. And then to be like straight up booed, you could see Renaud's face where he was just like, just intimidated by that environment. So I was kind of sad in that it wasn't, I don't know, it wasn't the environment that one would hope for the Olympics, of like inclusion and just kind of, you know, that fan base that really supports. But I do think that the Rio Olympics were cool in that I had a lot of friends that went, and I got to share it with, my whole family went down. My whole family, they went to London and Rio. So to be able to share it with them, that was pretty cool.
Oh, wow. Did your mom, when we asked you this earlier about, you know, kind of following her footsteps, did she really kind of was the person you leaned on during those times of having to qualify and then maybe taking that day off and then coming back for finals, and, you know, even traveling with your hammer, which is not the easiest. Did you take it apart?
Yeah, I would put it in my suitcase. So, you know, the first week at U of H, I saw all these Pelican cases that are awesome to put your hammers in. I was like, man, I had to put it like with my clothes in my suitcase. I had to take less clothes so my suitcase wouldn't be like overweight. It was a whole thing.
To the Olympics, you're doing that.
Yeah, so there definitely is a difference between, you know, countries and all that. But anyways, we digress. My mom, well, it was kind of difficult actually for my parents, because there was a time in my career where I was like, I lost my mojo, I would say, especially after the London Olympics, where I lost my footing. I felt insecure. So every time I stepped into the ring to compete, I would just like sabotage myself. if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Not willingly, like not trying to. I was actually trying to do the opposite, but just this insecurity would just creep in, and I just would not throw anything similar to what I was competing doing. So it was like several years of, I would say, kind of a low between 2012 and 2018.
Uh-huh.
So 6 really hard years where I didn't feel like my old self. I wasn't enjoying competitions. I would have like, honestly, like almost panic attacks every time I would go to compete. And my parents would try to like help me and understand what was going on, but I just felt like every time they asked me, they were like kind of pressuring me and judging me. That's what I felt like. That's not what they were actually trying to do. But it was just a difficult transition. So I relied more on, I would say, my coach and my friends in Argentina. Like I have other Olympic friends who had gone through like highs and lows, and I would reach out to them and really get their support. Obviously, I always had my parents' support, but I just felt like they didn't understand, because even though my mom was an Olympian, she was an Olympian when she was 16.
Yeah.
So I feel like she didn't have that like high profile career that I had. The other day somebody was asking me like, hey, I see you're not on Twitter. And I was like, no, for my mental health, I had to like abandon Twitter because it was just a sewer of mean people tweeting at me after every competition. So I really had to like pull the plug on that. And I was like, social media should be a place that I
Enjoy
get
it.
some type of enjoyment or support.
Affirmation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I have MySpace now.
MySpace.
Does that still
you're
exist?
on it by yourself. Nobody else is there. It doesn't
Go ahead.
exist.
I'm sorry.
No, so like obviously I always knew that my parents and my family had, so would support me and all of that, but I definitely tried to reach out to other people
Yeah.
that I had felt would be more in my shoes and would be able to understand it better.
We've had
And
a
then in
lot of-
28, no, go ahead.
I'm sorry. We've had a lot of people on, and they've kind of went through that big lulls in their career, and some people, they would reach out to sports psychologists.
Mhm.
Some people would actually do journaling and kind of keep track of the days that they were good, and kind of maybe connect the dots of when they were highs or a little bit of lows, and maybe kind of put their thoughts together a little bit of that. Did you pursue any of that those paths of maybe journaling or outside influences or counseling?
I did. I've tried several different types of sports therapy, including more like Freudian type of psychotherapy. I've tried like mindfulness meditation oriented towards sport, and then just different sports therapists until I found one that really clicked with me. And then I felt like he was giving me proper tools. And honestly, I wish that more athletes had this kind of support. I am really concerned about the taboo associated with any type of like mental health in the US specifically. Like I know we have at U of H a therapist, in support of kids if they need it, but it's not something that they proactively do. So I'm trying to, especially with my kids, work on different aspects. This week, actually, I'm sitting down with each one of them individually to set down their goals for the upcoming season. But I want it to be, what are your like goals in terms of numbers, technique, and mentality? So I want to break it down into 3 different things and see how those are interconnected and how we can improve. Because a couple of them have, told me in the past, like, oh, I don't, I do well in warm-ups, or I don't do well once the big competitions start. And I'm like, well, these are all things that are trainable. So even though obviously I'm not a super qualified person to do it, I feel like I am a good resource for them to talk about these things, and to be able to normalize them. Let's put it on the table. Let's like work these steps. Let's, try to figure out how we can improve in all 3 of these aspects. So that's something that I'm like actively trying to instill in my kids, is that all these aspects are trainable and we can get better. And just because in the past you've struggled with this doesn't mean we can't improve it in the future. So
yeah,
that's awesome. So true. Yeah.
So when you were like kind of getting toward the end of your throwing and your last meet, when was your last like meet as a professional? In 2019, right before COVID?
It was actually 2021. Yeah, so it was last year. I originally I wanted to go to Tokyo.
Okay.
2019, end of 2019, I had another foot surgery. So like the same thing that had happened in 2007 that we had fixed, unfixed itself after so many years. And they went in and removed like the screw, and like my tendon was all messed up. So it was this big surgery. It was supposed to be a lighter surgery. And then they're like, "Oh yeah, you're gonna, walk out of here with a walking boot." And I wake up with like a cast to my knee. And I was like,
Wow.
interesting. So it was quite a process to recover. I didn't start like really walking until January of 2020. And by March, I was already throwing. And the weekend that I was set to start competing, lockdown happened. And lockdown in Argentina was super strict. I spent 5 months doing snatch and squats and some turns in my living room without seeing another person other than Zoom calls. And it just really, like, I was already, I would say, jaded by a lot of things, and just tired of a lot of other things. So COVID kind of just, sucked the little fun that I still had out of it. And then when we started competing again at the very end of 2020, I remember I did like 3 very small meets, but there was nobody out on the track. We had to wear our masks like in between throws. It just felt I just felt very disconnected from it.
Yeah.
And then I was like, you know what, this isn't what I love. Like, give myself one more off season, which off season was my favorite thing. Like getting super strong and that volume where you're super tired, but you feel like you're progressing was my favorite feeling ever. So I gave myself one more off season. And then once we started competing in 2021, I think everybody thought that 2021 was going to be like this magical like switch, like, okay, COVID is over, we are go.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like that. There was still more uncertainty. Different countries in Argentina were closing their borders, and people weren't able to travel. And it just got to be too much for me. So I was like, I'm not going to go to Tokyo. But South American Championships were set to be in May in Buenos Aires at the same circle where I started throwing 23 years before. So I was like, this is kind of poetic.
Yeah.
So that was my plan. But then, like 2 or 3 months into it, I just realized that like there's like the uncertainty was continuing. So we didn't know if we were going to be able to travel. I was like, by the look of things, South American Championships was going to be like canceled, postponed, switched venues, like all of these different things. And I hadn't competed internationally for 15 months, which was insane, especially for somebody who had been competing every year for 23 years. I mean, I went to 10 world championships straight. So I was used to competing at the top level. Yeah. And then after 15 months, these other girls from South America were beating me that like had no business beating me, but also like I didn't even care that they were beating me. I was just so disconnected from it. So I decided to quietly retire after our Argentine national championships, which were right around my birthday in April. I mean, and my coach knew, and some of my really close friends knew. One of my best friends came with her whole family, and she made me like a crown of laurel for when I won. So I won and I retired, and that was it. And like I just honestly I felt like relief. So that just tells me that I stretched it as long as I could, and it was definitely time, and I left it all out there. Like
awesome.
No regrets whatsoever.
No.
Oh, that's awesome.
So did you picture yourself now currently? Did you think, okay, now I'm going to be a coach?
No.
What is your degree in? Like, what did you go to Georgia for? Like,
English. I was going to be an English teacher.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow.
Great.
Yeah.
Days.
Yeah, and this year, when I started to study to be a massage therapist, I was like, I'm going to be a massage therapist. And then halfway through the year, when Blackburn reached out to me again and we started doing it, I was like, oh, this feels like it was meant to be. But honestly, I never pictured myself as a coach. So I don't know, maybe it's imposter syndrome or whatever, but now that I'm in it, I love it. And I love seeing my kids like improve. It's also a pretty steep learning curve. Like, there's a lot of background stuff that coaches do, that, staff meetings and team meetings and recruiting. So I'm, I have a notebook and I'm writing it down, and I'm trying to learn. But the most important is that we have fun. Today we had a Halloween practice. The kids came out in costume. I gave them the best 2 costumes got a prize. So I try to make them like, have fun and also improve. So I'm lucky that
Yeah, so much, and you have so much to offer your athletes from all of your experiences. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so
We're
much.
very lucky to have you.
For sure, for
Very
sure.
lucky to have you.
So if some youth, if some high school athletes are listening, tell us what's going on with University of Houston right now in the new track and field. We have a new director, like we talked about, Coach Blackburn, friend of the show, personal friend of mine. What's going on? Y'all got new facilities. You're going into the Big 12. What else?
Yeah, there's a lot going on at U of H. So Blackburn has transitioned to director of track and field, and he's working with the throws or with the jumps, and I'm taking over the throws. I'm recruiting. I'm learning to recruit because that's also a thing. And a couple weeks ago, I went to a high school club, practice, and a lot of the parents were like, "Well, what do you look for in an athlete?" I'm like, "Oh, this is such a hard question because in my experience, I've seen different body types throw in different ways and still throw far." So it's kind of this immeasurable potential that you're looking for. And it's a feeling. And that's what Blackburn has told me from day one with recruiting. He's like, trust your gut. And it's an intimidating thing. But there's a lot of talent out there. So we're moving into the Big 12 as of next year. So after the 2023 season, so for 2024, we'll be in the Big 12. It's going to change definitely our budget. So we're going to redo the indoor track. Football's moving into their own facility. So there's going to be definitely like restructuring. But our business of running fast and jumping high and throwing far is the same. So that doesn't change a lot. And what I'm looking forward to is creating a throws group that I really love in terms of like having kids with a great attitude that want to throw far, that want to improve. And if they're, like top scorers, that's great. But also just seeing them improve is a really cool feeling for me. So I'm excited about it.
Awesome. Now, are you both boys and girls or male, female thrower coach? Okay.
Yeah, all of it.
Both sides. Doing javelin as well, or is that's going to be multi?
It's a little bit of a mix. So javelin
Okay.
is like the one event that I'm a little bit intimidated by, just because it's such a different horse. It's a horse of a different color. So Kyle and I are both like working together to work on the javelin kids. So yeah, it's gonna be like a joint venture until I'm
Gotcha.
kind of really, really comfortable to take it over, just because I want the best for my kids. And I think that an important part of being a coach is also knowing when to say when and like saying like, hey, okay, I may be lacking in this area. I'm going to learn, I'm going to improve.
Awesome.
Being able to recognize that about yourself. So javelin is it's on my like study list, and
Gotcha.
I will be improving.
Gotcha.
But for now, right now, it's gonna be KT is gonna be mostly coaching the jav.
Gotcha. What? So you're on the same staff with one of the greatest U.S. track athletes in Carl Lewis. What has it been like to see a different side of him versus what we see on good, Wild World of Sports on Saturday morning? Now you get to sit next to him. That had to be pretty unique.
It's really, really cool. And actually, when I was in high school in Klein, I won the high school indoor meet, the Carl Lewis Invitational.
Mhm.
I actually won it my junior and my senior year. And both times, like I won the best, what's it called, like best performance trophy. Yeah. But both times I had already left. So like I threw and I got my individual thing, and then I left, and I never got to meet Coach Carl because Coach Carl actually like gave the trophy at that meet. So yeah, I never got to meet him then. And then it's pretty cool. Like, we have a staff meeting tomorrow morning, and he'll be sitting across the table, and I'm just like, once you really like, I'm a track nerd. I love everything track and field. And the cool thing about my career that is so long that like I got to really experience and see all these different things. Like I saw every single one of Usain Bolt's world records in person.
Oh.
Like how many people can say that? That's so cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
So then when you have like a living legend like Coach Carl is sitting in front of you, and I see him on the track putting in work every day with his crew, it's a really cool feeling.
Wow.
That is
Wow.
awesome.
Do you still, because you ran in the same circles, I know that the Hammers throwers are pretty tight. Deanna Price, she's coming over some injuries. Gwen Berry, Brooke Anderson, all the stuff that's been going on. Do you still talk to them? Did you watch the trials for the U.S. and see how well they did, or the World Championships?
The U.S. women's hammer right now is insanely good.
Yeah.
It's getting so competitive. And actually, I was talking to Sultana Frizzell is a Canadian hammer thrower, and she had the Canadian record before Cameron Rogers.
Uh-huh.
And we were talking about how like we retired right on time, because right now it's just, you know, like such a steep curve of improvement. Deanne and I were teammates on the Continental Cup, and Gwen Berry, I threw against her at Pan Am Games in 2019. So
Mhm.
there's, I don't know, it's definitely cool to be able to see different styles, different techniques, and see how well the women's hammer is progressing. Honestly, it's inspiring, and it's really cool.
Questions, because it's almost Astro time. If you're a high school girl in the state of Texas and you know nothing about the hammer, but you want to maybe throw in college, shot, disc, and possibly hammer, what advice would you give them? What tools would you encourage them to go seek out?
Oh, that's a tough one, honestly, because I also it's tough if, you know, if you're not surrounded by somebody that actually knows a little bit of hammer, to learn from YouTube or whatever would be really complicated. I would say to focus on shot and disc, and you know, explore the possibilities of who you would want to coach you in the hammer. And what I look for, remember we were talking about that like kind of intangible potential. It's
Yeah.
about being coordinated, how well you move, because I can coach you in technique and you can develop your strength, but you need to be a coordinated athlete. So being able to run and jump and throw, move well, and in all of the throws, the footwork is the most important. A lot of times we try to power it with our upper body, but all throws are born from our feet and how well our footwork is, how well it moves, and yeah, just to focus on those things.
Awesome.
I do have another question. I know I'll get you. I know Ashley.
We have 20 more. One more time.
No, you talked about how, you know, you were one of the things you're most proud of is teaching or showing the children in Argentina or kids about hammer throws. So is that something you will go back, or did you do as a professional athlete, clinics or camps to introduce more girls and boys into hammer? Is that something you want to do?
I think that developmentally, the best thing I could have done for Argentina was just to be on the world stage and to show it, and like for people to see it on TV and to know what it is. And then
the dogs say it's time to. Your time is up, Mom.
No, it's fine. Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Doing camps.
So
Yeah.
if I were to go back down to Argentina right now, I mean, I could do throws camps, and I could do them in South America. There's an a World Athletics Development Center in Santa Fe in Argentina.
Oh.
That we've done some things, like Yuri Seti came down and gave us a clinic down there. So I could do different things like that. But honestly, what's more interesting to me is probably getting back into my public speaking that I did a lot of in Argentina. Talking about, you know, setting big goals and being committed and all of that, but also talking about body positivity and being bullied and what effects that had on me in my personal and professional life. So if I were to go back down to Argentina right now, or even South America, it would probably be more of a public speaking interest than a camp, but I'm not opposed to it. We'll see what happens in the future.
I'm sure.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Sure. One final question. Have you met Messi? Have you met him?
I saw him at the Beijing Olympics. He was actually playing on the PlayStation with some of our other athletes, and I saw him, and I didn't want to bother him, but I did meet Maradona before he passed away. I met him in 2008. Did? Well, in 2008 he was the technical director for the Argentine team at the Olympics, so I got to meet him then.
Oh wow!
Yeah, but I haven't met Messi yet.
Okay.
But we're excited. We're excited. My dad's excited. November, you know, starts the World Cup, and
yeah,
we're hoping this is Argentina's year. We've been, you know, in the finals a couple times in the last couple, and you know, who knows how many more World Cups Messi has. So hopefully this one will be a good one.
It sounds like you need to get the keeper gloves back on to me.
No, my knee won't let me do any more of that stuff. Sometimes even when I'm showing my kids the drills, and I'm like, oh, my knee. So I'll borrow one of my kids. I'm like, will you show this drill for me, please? Thank you. Like,
how's Daisy doing? She doing good?
Daisy's doing well. Yeah, she's I mean, and it's a transition for all of them, to be fair, to be coached from Blackburn to be coached by me, and there's different styles and different things that we're asking. And each kid has their own process, and it's a trust thing also, right? And that's why I try to really explain what I expect of them and why we do the things we do in the throw, what that means, what it looks like, for them to understand and really be masters of their craft. But yeah, Daisy's doing good, and I'm actually really excited. We're 2 months away from the indoor season, so I'm excited to see what will happen.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I won't be coming down there, but Janelle will be bringing some of our youth down to the Joe DeLoach on January the 15th.
Yep.
So,
awesome.
Yeah,
they
so
have
if you're around,
couple of 9,
9, 10, 11
9
year
and
olds will
10.
be
They're
down
9
there
and
and
10
stuff.
now. Couple little shot putters.
Yeah, she coaches
Awesome.
all our youth and stuff like that too. Well, hey, yeah, Hammer's priority. So
There you go.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. We wish you all the best. I'm glad to see you're down at University of Houston. It's a great fit for you. We need some good hammer coaches in the state of Texas, and I'm hoping you're leading the front, because everybody else wants shot and damn discus throwers. So there's
That's okay.
nobody wants to coach
at
hammer
least,
in Texas.
At least more hammer throwers for me. So
There
I'm,
you go.
I'm not mad at it.
There you go. So for sure. Well, thank
right,
you.
well,
Good luck. Appreciate
Thank y'all
everything.
so much. We'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank y'all so much.
You go ahead.
Man, she was really good. I think because after everyone that we could talk forever, but she had so many great things just to share with high school athletes or even college athletes that weren't hammer specific about her consistency. She showed up every day and worked hard every day.
No shortcuts.
No shortcuts. The weight of the hammer didn't change. The ball doesn't change, and the length of the wire doesn't change. So if there's something not happening right in your throw, it's mental, it's physical, it's whatever, it's technique, it's the implement doesn't change. It's the same every day. And if you develop that consistency from someone who has thrown for 23 years, and I haven't looked at her marks, but they were probably fairly consistent.
Yeah.
I mean, even high school and college and professionally, even in her lows, it's because you don't take shortcuts. You have big goals, you have to put in big work.
Yeah.
That's so true. It's that simple. We make it hard, but it's that simple.
I just think she had that inner drive. You could just tell it when she was talking, the look in her eyes. She had that inner drive to be successful. And I think that inner drive is going to carry her to have a really good, successful throws program at the University of Houston, because once you have a passion for something, you definitely can teach for it. And I think her kids are resonating that passion that's through her, especially for hammer, but even maybe in shot and disc as well. And I anticipate some big marks coming out of the University of Houston when they get into the Big 12. I like the simple fact too that also, even the adversity of traveling all the time and going from one place to the other, even though she was only in the state of Texas for a couple of years, she kind of had a plan for those 2 years. She was successful, throwing, and then that kind of catapulted her to Georgia, but the foundation of being a hammer thrower was kind of always there. She could have just said, oh, I'm just going to give that up because, I'm in Texas now and go to different things, but she didn't do that. But I think just the consistency of being in 4 Olympics is amazing. And being from a country that is maybe not track dominant as a country like
Definitely
some of our
throwing, no.
yeah, definitely compared to maybe some of our European countries, and maybe not have the funding or facilities or the coaching. She was very fortunate to have the Marcelo. I can't pronounce his last name. That former hammer thrower professionally that was there to kind of influence and guide her career and stuff like that. So
Excited to have her just down the street from us.
for sure.
That's awesome. All right, I thank our sponsors.
Yes.
I can't think of the word for them. Thank our sponsors for this season. Texas Track and Field Coach Association. Go to ttfca.org. We talked at the beginning about their winter clinic, so make sure you are registered for that. There's a virtual option or come in person because it's going to be well worth your time. Fourthrows.com, get quality implements. Use the code TalkingThrows10 to get 10% off. Porta Circle, porta-circle.com. Use the use the code TalkingThrows10 to get 10% off of your Porta Circle. If you're in the Austin area, Ready Up Athletic Development, give Zach a call at 512-507-8347 and make sure and look up his basic throw strength on the Train Heroic. That is a great program, and you can use
Train to Throw Heroic website.
Train Heroic website. Basic throw strength is the program.
Yeah.
And use the code THROWS10, and you get 20% off of that weight program.
Hello, Talking Throws Texas podcasters. I'm Bruce Caldwell. I'm here today to introduce the Fiber Sport Discus. Yes, many of you thought I only made great vaulting poles. I have been bringing quality discuses to the throwers' hands for over 40 years. First as Cantabrian USA representative, then for the past 10 years as the Nelco discus distributor. I introduced the yellow-plated discus for the plastic's best durability. If your Fiber Sport discus breaks, we replace it. Our studies have reached into the science of using a wind tunnel and adding microchips to the discus to find the spin, the gravity, the flight stability of the discus. We have found it's not about rim weight anymore. It's more about creating a balanced stability to allow the discus to fly and surf the wind. Our new Fiber Sport discus is made to be selected to fit your needs, no matter the weather, no matter the conditions. Check out our discus selection guide at fibersportdiscus.com and find a dealer in your area that sells our fine product. Thank you, Jason Janelle, for allowing me to talk with your listeners on Talk and Throws Texas Style.
And go to the Throwing Factory. We got apparel. We're doing lessons. You've got a young kiddo wanting to start throwing, doing some discus lessons with some young kids, shot putters, 8, 9, bring them out. We can do a little 30-minute lesson and introduce them to something, and may find their hidden talent right there. All kids want to throw heavy stuff. And
Lifting DFW human performance. So if you're wanting to learn the proper way to do a snatch or clean and jerk, reach out to me and we can get you started. We can write a program as well, but Zach Phillips is doing a really good job of writing the program. We don't want to take away from his business, but if you want something face-to-face and you're in the DFW area, we can definitely get you taken care of. We're training in a lot of youth now. They're seeing really good results, and hope that's going to carry over into the ring. So that website is liftingdfw.com. And then also a big shout out to Big Frogs Colleyville, who handles all our apparel and embroidering and all that type of stuff. So if you're ever in the Mid-Cities area in the DFW and you need something really quick, whether it's one shirt or 100 shirts, and you need a really cool design, run by Big Frogs Colleyville. You can just Google that.
awesome. You guys have a good one.
We'll see you down the road.